Thank you, Mary, for kicking us off, and thank you everyone for being here. I woke up to about an inch of snow and I said, oh gosh, I don't know what this is going to mean, but neither rain nor snow nor sleet keeps ACNJ from this event and our great supporters, so thank you for being here. I think it's wonderful that we're talking about food today. It was just a week ago, right, that many of us were preparing a beautiful meal for family, setting a wonderful table, feeling the warmth and love of our families, and giving thanks for abundance and access and availability of food. And of course, we're here today too because we know that's not the case for everyone in this state. And we are here today because we want to talk about how we can move towards food security. And so in this holiday season, a lot of us are thinking about food because it's kind of what makes this season special. But for my two panels here, this is not just a seasonal obsession. It is something they think about 365 days a year, and I would think probably at night as well. So I'd like to just introduce my panelists quickly. I'm joined by Elizabeth McCarthy, President and CEO of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, which she joined in summer of 2023. Prior to that, serving as the President of Sheltering Arms, a nonprofit based in New York City that provides services to children and families most in need. And Mark Dinglason, right now the Executive Director of the Office of the Food Security Advocate. And Mark, I think we're going to want to know more about this office because if you don't know, this is the first of its kind in the country. So prior to that, Mark was the Executive Director at Kumac and Patterson for 5 years. 5 years. So if you look on your program book, you can see their bios in more detail. But you can also see the theme for this morning is Feeding the Future, linking food security and wellness for New Jersey's children. So I really want to maybe start this morning by focusing on that phrase food security, which a lot of us have heard about. I think a lot of us kind of grew up hearing about hunger and the fight against hunger. But you all have been talking about instead working for food security. A question for both of you. Can you help us understand the difference between fighting against hunger versus working for or towards food security? Elizabeth, maybe we'll start with you since you're closest to me.
Sure. Yes, good morning, and thank you so much for having us with this very important topic. Really, for us, it means, and I'll let Mark do his definition because he has a very good definition that we all now have memorized, but it's his, so I'm going to let him go with it. But really, it's not just about providing food, which, we are very proud that we distribute 110 million pounds of food in a given year, but that is not where we are. Through our network of partners, some of whom are here, we have 800 partners whom we work with. But it's really then trying to find strategies to shorten the line at pantries, to have fewer people have to access food in that way. So it's job development, it's enrolling people in SNAP and WIC, and school feeding programs, and really trying to make sure that families have a consistent way of getting food and not having to use the pantry system.
And I love that we started with that question. Actually makes me grateful that I have Dr. Jenny as my research and evaluation person so I can actually answer questions like this. So the definition thank you for that Elizabeth is talking about is that true food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food for both dietary and cultural preferences, right? And I think an important part of this that we talk about at the office all the time is that, especially in this work, we sometimes even use food insecurity and hunger interchangeably. But even getting the understanding between that, right? Because hunger is a physiological phenomenon, but food insecurity is actually a socio-economic phenomenon. So that is the definition that I think grounds a lot of my work, Elizabeth's work, and a lot of the work that New Jersey's doing.
Thanks, Mark. I remember when I first heard you talk about hunger as physiological versus food insecurity as something that's more as you said, socioeconomic, and I would venture to say, probably even just kind of like a mental and emotional, right? The stress that a child might feel. And I should say probably this morning we'll keep it imperative as much as we can on children in this conversation, given Advocates for Children in New Jersey, that's kind of who we're speaking out for. But I know that with your work with QMAC too, you are very much approaching things through a trauma-informed lens and think about adverse childhood experiences. So I was wondering if you could kind of help us as an audience understand a little bit more the mental and health impacts of food insecurity on a family and on the child.
Sure, and for those of you that know me, and I see a lot of my friends in the room, so it's really great to see you guys, but to everybody, happy holidays, right? A lot of my work is grounded in preventing traumatic experiences in childhood in order to create true food security. I think one of the most important things for me, and especially now, I have a 3-year-old, right? So the team at QMAC, when my kid was born and I came back from paternity leave, everybody said, uh-oh, everybody buckle up, Hef has got that look in his eye, right? So now I'm even more unapologetic about this. In terms of children, right? We know that our brains form based on our experiences, right? And so for me, especially when I look at my 3-year-old, and this is when I was at QMAC, and this is still me now. If we think about the experience of being chronically food insecure and chronically hungry, right? And what that does to a parent, a caregiver, and then what that does for a child, right? Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris used to say all the time, imagine if that traumatic experience meets you in the bedroom every night, or every morning in the kitchen or on the way to school. So Justin, our brains form, and especially the brains of our children, are forming based on their experiences. And if they are experiencing something traumatic, something negative chronically, right? Just think about how that is affecting how our children form and how they grow up. And then all of a sudden they go to school and we tell them to do better. And we tell them to be better, right? But we haven't really talked about what those challenges do to them, especially in the formative years.
I love what you've shared with me too, the idea that a lot of food banks are they are preparing kind of emergency food rations for families, but families are receiving these on chronic levels. And when we think about being in emergency mode in a chronic pattern,
correct,
obviously it kind of creates that issue. Elizabeth, turn to you now for Community Food Bank of New Jersey. If what Mark is saying is true, how does your organization seek to intervene to kind of stop that from becoming chronic or from becoming something that's traumatic for children?
Yes, so many of our partners now have much more wraparound services. So rarely does someone come, first of all, to a food pantry and food is the only issue in their lives. I mean, it can happen, but generally there's just much more that they might need assistance with. So some of our partners are really able to help people, whether it's connecting to job training or rental assistance or different things to make them in less of a state of crisis. Because you're right, that's exactly the problem. People, it's constant crisis. And we know the impact that has not only on your physical health, but your mental health. So really working with pantries wherever we can to have it be more of a holistic experience for someone coming to a pantry. That yes, we're going to give you food, and the difference, if you haven't been to a food pantry in a few years or something, it's all entirely different. Like 1/3 of what we distribute is fresh produce. So you're getting protein, you're getting produce that is not just shelf-stable food. Of course, that has its place in all of our homes also, but it's that mixture of food and really an opportunity to get healthy food out to people. That's going to help with that brain development. That's going to help children develop in an appropriate way.
Thank you. A question for both of you here is, Elizabeth, you just spoke about when people come to a food bank having a more pleasant experience, more choice. For those who can't get to a food bank, particularly for families with young children, maybe there's transportation issues, what are some innovative approaches for getting food to them that Community Food Bank has been exploring, or maybe the Office of Food Security Advocate has been talking about?
Yeah, there are many, and that's the nice thing about our network is people are sort of doing different things and what works in their community. There's not one size fits all by any stretch. So some places have home delivery, so someone can call a pantry, place an order. Some even have online ordering. You can order, often volunteers are then bringing it to people's homes. But also our child feeding programs in schools are really beneficial. So our after-school programs The child, some children, they might get breakfast and lunch at school, but that might be it for the day. Their family doesn't necessarily have food, so they're getting another meal in an after-school program that are meals that are made in our kitchen and delivered. But then also we said, okay, well, a family, if a child's food insecure, the entire family is probably food insecure. Sometimes the parents even more so because they are, skipping meals for their child. So we started a program that's Family Pack, it's called. And so somebody on the weekends, we send children home with supplemental food for the entire family. And some of that's shelf stable, but more and more we have programs where people can get produce, can get foods that will help their family when they're not in school.
And for me, in terms of innovative programs, I'd love to answer your question by just bragging about all the stuff I've done.
Please do.
No, I won't. Instead, because it's the holidays, I want to give everybody a vision, right? With this question, my North Star for this. There's an organization in Columbus, Ohio, called Community Development for All People. And when you walked into their choice marketplace that was manned by social workers, they were on iPads. They plug in your name and they can see within an 8-mile radius what services you have accessed and what your needs are. And that choice marketplace works with the farmers, with the Ohio Food Bank, and it's across the street from the Mama and Me programs and from the dental hygiene and oral health programs, and across the street from benefits enrollment, and across the street from the bike shop, where if you're trying to get to work but you can't afford to take a bus, you can get a bike for free. Right? Plus, this organization has $25 million in housing assets, so they can get you safe, stable, humane housing as well. And then the other innovative practice that I had seen, food pharmacies, right? Geisinger Health in Pennsylvania, you can look them up, they were doing food pharmacies so well that Google stole their chief medical officer that was working with the chief innovation officer to build a food pharmacy. But in a food pharmacy, a parent goes in, right? They're signing up for their medical appointment, but then they can pick the foods that they want, and then on the way out, access health services, right? Talk to the dietitian, nutritionist. This was my why not. This is what I was working towards, and truly this is what I feel, and I think Elizabeth and I share this vision. This is what all frontline organizations should be working towards. How can we bring services to families rather than telling families, do better at accessing services. It's your fault that you're not on STEM. It's your fault that you're not on WIC. How can we meet families where they're at by innovating? Because we're smart enough to do it.
And the nice part about those models is it's kind of that there's no wrong door model. That if someone's at the health office and then food insecurity is discovered, the pantry's right there. If they're at the pantry, they have some health or mental health issue, it's right there. The Head Start program, all these co-located places, which more and more we're seeing those models here too. It's really, really important for families.
And I'm sorry, Justin, and necessary. And also, Elizabeth and I are not just sharing a vision with you. I think it's really important for us to know this morning, and this matters to our kiddos. It's happening here in New Jersey, right? It's actually happening in New Jersey. You're running one in Garfield, right?
You said you weren't going to brag, so I shouldn't brag. But we are.
It's happening here in Jersey, but can it be connected, right? Can we all be connected more than ever?
That's a really powerful model because I think it underscores for us as an audience the idea that if a family is facing food insecurity, that's not just the single issue they're facing. It's going to be housing, it's going to be health, there's going to be a whole host of issues that are leading to that food insecurity. So I appreciate that. Since we are focusing on kids here today and feeding the future, I think we have to talk about schools too. And Elizabeth, you mentioned this earlier. ACNJ, of course, has been working hard on making sure that more students are getting free breakfast after the bell. But there's still a stigma, I think a lot of students might feel. So what can we do as a state to reduce that stigma and make sure more kids are ready to learn during the school day?
You can start.
So I got a call in January. Literally, it was I think the world of him in Trenton, and he was like, "Hey, look, there's some legislation we're working on. Don't punch me in the face. We're about to give you more work." Related to schools, we passed legislation in January to expand access to school meals. But I think what's important for everybody to understand in that legislation that was passed, it actually mandated my office to draft the strategic recommendations that New Jersey can take to increase access to school meals for as many kids as possible. So we're working on that now. On top of that, my office also has oversight over an appropriation to actually do pilot work with Rutgers and several schools to address exactly that, Justin. And look, we're not finding out something that's a surprise to anybody in here. There are parents that maybe will say, it's time for me to go to a pantry because I've used every play I have, every tool I have, and I'm just not making it. So now I have to make it to a pantry. But by and large, Justin, if we're talking about stigma, especially for school meals, parents don't want to fill out that form, right? Because they're not supposed to ask for help, right? They're supposed to be able to feed their babies on their own, right? So unless we're willing to engage parents on that front, and this is the Rutgers project that we're doing on right now. I think we're up to 30 schools now that we're piloting innovation with on this front, not just to fill out SNAP applications, but the school meal application as well. By and large, how can we help parents build that agency and get a little bit of that hope back, right? So that they're willing to engage with us and listen to the fact that they deserve this help.
And one of the things, unfortunately, that we're very concerned about right now is we actually see some people disenrolling because not only the stigma, but the fear. So a lot of our immigrant families are sort of saying, I don't want to be in the system at this moment in time. There is just a lot of fear out there. And so it's something that we're really trying to work with families to, make sure that they do feel safe. That, even if, because we know the children are eligible, but still there's just this feeling that, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen.
Are there ways around that? I mean, ways that that family can access that food through some other way besides the filling out of the form?
I mean, not for school meals, that they do have to fill it out, but it's really so just doing all we can to talk about, the security of the data and all that kind of thing. But it is, I understand the fear, so it's just sort of trying to work with families around that.
And Elizabeth, I think an important thing that everybody needs to remember, that we need to remind ourselves of, this idea of people are disenrolling. So the number of kids that participate in school lunch in New Jersey has continued to go down, right? Ever since the pandemic, right? So one, we need to remember that. Two, in terms of people disenrolling from benefits, we had to address this in 2016 and 2017. And then this became an issue again in 2020 and 2021, right? I had hoped that we have the muscles to do this, right? I had hoped that we wouldn't have to use them ever again. But this is something we should consider, and we know that this is something that we've had to address before, and it's probably coming again.
When you were speaking before, Mark, about the food pharmacy, I thought that was going to go in a different direction a little bit in terms of food as healing and food as something that can make us more healthy. So I was wondering if both of you could kind of talk about any policy advances or innovative approaches to link more nutritious food, more healthy food towards school lunches or just towards families' overall diets.
So for us, since we do work through this network of pantries, mostly it's making sure that the food that we're getting out is healthy and that people know what choices to make. So we do have a nutrition policy that when a pantry goes into our system to order things, it ranks foods by kind of like choose often, choose sometimes, choose rarely. So there's no bad food, there's nothing we're saying you shouldn't eat, but just so that people know. And then in addition, when someone goes to a pantry, a lot of things are labeled. So if you're diabetic or if you have heart disease, they kind of have like foods that are color-coded and things to make sure you know good choices for those. So I think it's really just, a lot of it's just nutrition education for families and making sure they know what children need to develop properly. So really, and our health partners are great with that. So giving people sort of a prescription almost for food and going to talk to a nutritionist is really, really important.
So because we're going to talk about policy right now, just so for more context about how I'm able to have these conversations, my office is in the governor's office. I report to the governor, but we do work very closely with the legislature. So just into, when you were saying, say a little bit more about it, we're the only office in the country that's doing food security work that's independent and agile. And in terms of policy that we're doing to make sure we're making kids healthier, first, the food pharmacies, I will say, the food pharmacies I've studied have always been built by healthcare systems to decrease costs, right, for emergency department super users and whatnot. How powerful would it be if they were built by community organizations? So, Katim, think about that. Just kidding. Not kidding. But in terms of policy, right, if folks like Robin and Katine and Carolyn, who's in here, are going to think about innovation. A lot of the policy work, a good part of what I'm going to devote 2025 to, we have, shout out to Chip on this one, from America's Grower. Oh, I saw him over there somewhere. There it is. We have more than 10,000 farms here in New Jersey. More than 10,000 farms. We have 6 commercial fishing ports. We produce millions and millions of pounds of food. And yet food insecurity in this state continues to go up. And it's now at 10.7%. In 2020, it was at like 8.8%, right? There is a disconnect. And in terms of policy, what we're working on, and we're based in the Department of Agriculture, so the Secretary and I talk about this all the time, is there a way to connect our actual food supply to the organizations that are actually serving our families? And what that's going to take is, can we build online marketplaces? Can we create markets for farmers, right? Instead of just asking farmers to donate all the time. Can we create markets for our underrepresented farmers, our black and brown farmers, our women farmers, our LGBTQ farmers, right? We have to innovate and we have to look at these policies in these ways. And until Trenton kicks me out, I am going to be talking. I am going to be challenging both the governor's office and the legislature to think about policies that create a direct line of sight between our actual food supply and our kiddos.
And sometimes that means investing in those farms, right? So infrastructure and sort of helping them, because a lot of them are very small farms, and like we do work directly with them, but for many, it's very hard for them to produce, the kinds of things that we need to get it to the right place and all of that. So I think it's not always the food itself, it's the way that we deliver the food to people.
We are the Garden State, right? So this makes sense. Elizabeth, do you all think about the narrowing that gap from the farm to the child, just in terms of getting the freshest produce, the kind of stuff that one of us might be excited to put on our Thanksgiving table to a family in need?
We do. I mean, through a program with the state. And first one, I want to say, New Jersey is really the leader in this country in solving for food insecurity. I mean, Mark's office in existence, that's one part, but also just financially. I mean, they kept SNAP benefits up when everybody, when they were cut in the rest of the country. They really fund our food supply. So I just want to give a shout out to New Jersey, because I really do think we're very fortunate. But we also do have a grant specifically to work with local farmers. And so yes, we want to get that. And really for us, the key is, I mean, some of you have been to our warehouse. I know a lot of the ACNJ team came and volunteered last week, but it's huge. But honestly, I'm trying to get less food to ever come into our warehouse. The more it comes directly from the farm to our partner, to one of our pantries, who's going to then have it out the next day for families, the better. So we're really reducing the amount. We're trying, when I first got there, they were like, we need a much bigger warehouse. Now we're saying, maybe we don't. Maybe we do more direct delivery, that the produce actually comes from the farm, and then the next day it can be on the plate the way we would all want it from a farmer's market. So absolutely.
Justin, may I bring up a critical point, especially in terms of getting our fresh food to our kiddos?
No.
Please do. One of the most brilliant community psychologists that I've ever worked with is the one who actually pointed this out to me when we were doing our transformational work in Patterson. It's not going to be enough as well if Elizabeth and I succeed in getting the fresh local food to our families. Because if we want to change behavior, we have to change the environment, right? That's what he said. If there is no access to high quality childcare, right? Shout out to Melissa, that's what we were working on when I was at CUMEC. If there's no access to jobs, if there's no access to safe, stable, humane housing, this is an all of us thing, and all of us are gonna have to do it. It's not gonna be enough if Elizabeth and I get the food to the families. If we want to change their health behaviors, if we want to positively affect social determinants of health, we must work on helping them to change their environment.
Excellent. Thank you. I feel like that's sort of a shout out for Advocates for Children of New Jersey as well. We are working hard to bring more high quality, affordable childcare for New Jersey families. So I think I wanted to ask about we're obviously facing a gubernatorial election next year. There's a lot of exciting policy stuff that you've just highlighted, Mark. For both of you, I'm going to give you the policy magic wand. If there's something you could kind of change with a flick of that wand in New Jersey that would have an impact on food security for children, what would that be?
Heavy question. I think on that one.
This was not on the.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I think we feel like we're more in the position of being ready to start defending changes that are going to be going in the wrong direction, so honestly.
So you're defensive right now?
We are. And when we think about our advocacy, and not only, I mean, of course, any gubernatorial candidate we're going to meet with and talk about the importance of food insecurity and things we can do, but some of the changes that are being talked about in Washington will really impact our families, and so we're really trying to put our advocacy in that area. So not cutting, right now it's 185% of the poverty level to make people eligible for some of these benefits. There's talk of cutting that to 130%. Especially in a state like New Jersey, that's an expensive place to live, as we all know. That's just not a realistic number for families. So it's really kind of looking at the changes as they're coming and trying to make sure that we're armed and that our partners, we were meeting with a bunch of our partners yesterday, they're like, let's all, we got to do this together. We all have to advocate and be the voice for those children, for those families, and that's really what we're working toward.
I have many thoughts, which is why I had to think about this one. Don't kill me. I think I'm about to go in the opposite direction. In 2020, when we realized that COVID was about to do in New Jersey what it did, I had one of my greatest partners, friends, and funders come up to me and say, "It looks like your big, beautiful plans are going to have to wait." And I looked at her and I said, "No, I think they just became more necessary than ever." So I would actually say, and I can say this, sorry Doc, I'm going to say it, we're going on the offense because I think building true food security is truly a bipartisan issue, market creation for families and economic mobility and economic liberation. But there are policies that have to change. For example, we have the $95 SNAP minimum benefit, and your team will be the first to say this, right? There are still not enough families in New Jersey that actually realize that the minimum benefit they get is $95, and it's because we've got really restrictive rules around some of these benefits that we provide to our families. A lot of the policies for how WIC can be used, right? So if I had a magic wand, Justin, I would create more liberties around our policies that govern the benefits that we give our parents, our caregivers, our families, so that we can actually more freely engage with parents and families to help them to sign up for these benefits. And I would make it less arduous. Like the school meal application, if you guys have actually ever seen a school meal, I see you, bro. If you've ever seen a school meal application, I dare you to go up to a parent that's under chronic toxic stress and say, please fill out this 3-page application with
English is not their first language, or their reading level is not,
And we actually can't change that form because of federal policy. Give me a magic wand, Justin. Tell me how we're going to do it. We need to meet parents where they're at, and our policies need to do that, especially at a time when I truly believe, and I'll owe you all a cookie if I'm wrong, that food security, especially the food security work we're doing in New Jersey, is bipartisan.
You have an audience here of do-gooders, people who want to see a more food secure future. Any recommendation for the people in this audience about what they can do as individuals to advance a more food secure future?
What you're doing, advocacy. I think letting people know about the issue, whether it's your elected officials or people, really that this issue matters and that there, it is something that should be absolutely bipartisan. We had to have that conversation at work the week after the election, and people are kind of saying, how can people? I said, it doesn't matter who people voted for. Nobody wants children to be hungry. They have their reasons for voting for whoever they voted for. Nobody wants that. So let's start from that kind of ground and just make sure that our elected officials know that this is in their communities. There's not a community in New Jersey that does not have food insecurity. So making sure people understand what that is, what it takes, and that we all have to be together on this.
And for me, I have two, and it doesn't matter if you're a funder, if you're in the corporate sector, right, or if you run a nonprofit. This is my rally cry for all of us in this room, in a room full of do-gooders. Two things. One, invest in mixed methods, research and evaluation, and the responses that you will, how you will respond to what you find out, and build safe spaces.
Can you explain what you mean by mixed method?
So mixed methods, research and evaluation, and this is actually what Dr. Jenny and I were doing at CUMAC. It's great if we have strong programs, right? But are we actively listening to and trying to find out not just the outputs, but the outcomes that our programs are generating? And are we compensating our parents and our caregivers who participate in our programs for their feedback? And then once they trust us enough to give us their feedback, right, do we respond? Right? Once we have their feedback, do we respond? It's incredibly hard and incredibly difficult to invest in mixed methods research and evaluation, right? It's hard to give it as a nonprofit ED, to give that time. For a funder, you're not going to see the results for that for like a year and a half, but you must invest in it. But it's twofold. We must also invest in responding to what we find out. Once you never ask somebody about their problems if you're not willing to do anything about it, right? And then the second thing, especially leading into next year, build safe spaces. Are we ensuring that families feel safe when they come to us? And I've said this for a long time. Safe doesn't just mean, oh, I know if I go there, I'm not going to get kicked in the shin. It's more than that. Do people feel seen, right? Are they working with credible community messaging? Are they working with a staff who's not burnt out and stressed? Because hurt people, but healed people, heal people, right? So safe spaces, research and evaluation and response.
Thank you. I have a couple quick fire questions for you all. More fun ones. Favorite food?
My mom's lechon.
I'm vegetarian, so I'm going to say
Ah,
it's kind of boring, but like broccoli and tofu.
Very well. Mark, having had some meetings with you, I know you're a superhero fan. So, which superhero would be the most badass food security advocate?
Wonder Woman. It's always the women.
That's the answer. Okay, good night, everybody. Superman, Captain America, Groot would be the most badass superhero, because that's what my 3-year-old Lily Grace calls me. She's like, Papa, Superman, Captain America, and Groot go to Trenton to help people. And I'm like, yes,
My son's 19. He does not think I'm Wonder Woman.
Elizabeth, one question. I know that obviously this is the Garden State, and one of your biggest supporters is Bruce Springsteen. Have you had a chance to meet him yet? Was that part of your contract?
I wish that was part of my contract. He actually came and delivered, he brought us an autographed guitar to auction off at one point. So that's the closest I've come, but no, I haven't sat down and had a meal with Bruce yet.
Oh, I was can I just tell Elizabeth a quick story about this? So it was before your time. So yeah, the boss is one of your supporters, but Bon Jovi is as well, and I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan. I met Bon Jovi at one of the community food bank blue jean balls, but I met him in the bathroom. And it was one of those epic moments where I was like, am I really going to be cool about this? Or,
It's kind of hard to be
bathroom.
Both of you are working in these big systems, which I know must have their moments of frustration. But I also imagine what pushes you forward is you must have giant reservoirs of hope inside. What keeps you hopeful? What keeps you going when it comes to working towards this huge issue of food security?
It's the people. I mean, the people are partners, like I said, some of whom are here when going out and meeting with them, but even just my staff. We have truck drivers who, yes, they're driving a truck, they do not see themselves just as truck drivers, they see themselves as part of the solution to food insecurity. Some of them have a lot of lived experience. They could work anywhere as a truck driver. They choose to work at the food bank. It's really pretty amazing. Our warehouse workers, same thing. They could work anywhere, probably for a little more money. They wouldn't get as good lunches served, because we do have a culinary training program. They get a nice lunch, but to them, they are part of our mission, and that's just really inspiring every day.
My why, my daughter, my tribe. My why, my background is juvenile justice. When you're in juvenile justice, it just imprints into you why you need to do this work and why it's so necessary. My daughter, because I'm more audaciously unapologetic now, because I see her every day, and I think every parent deserves to have what I have. And then my tribe, when I'm even at my lowest, and many of you are in this room, and I thank you for it. Bro, I haven't seen Evan in forever, but there's always somebody that's willing to check on you. So find your tribe, and stay up.
Well, I want to say on behalf of ACNJ and this audience, thank you for both of you for what you do, for thinking about food 365 days a year, for moving towards that food secure future for our kids, and for being our partners as advocates for children in New Jersey. So let's give it up again for I'm going to turn it over now to Mary.